Hi, I'm Erica and I live fully off-grid with my husband and 2 kids. Today I'm going to show you my process for grinding and packaging my own ground meat. My husband has been hunting for many years, and we have butchered a lot of animals together. And whenever you butcher an animal, there are always pieces that get trimmed off or that aren't really good for anything other than ground meat. And so when we butcher, we put all the meat that we're going to grind up into bags in the freezer because it's a lot of work and we don't want to do it at the same time as the butchering. So we put it off, and we don't put it off for too long because then you'll start to get freezer burnt bits around the edges, and then you'll have to trim your bags of grind, and it's just not worth it. So I get it done as soon as I can, within probably a week or 2 of the butchering. So this is meat from a bison. And so I'm going to start with cutting up these giant chunks of meat into strips that will fit in my meat grinder. So I had these thawing overnight in this bin. So the outer edges are almost all the way thawed, and then I've got a giant chunk of ice in the middle. So it's a bit difficult, but it is better to stay on the frostier side, especially because once you get all the meat ground up, it takes time to clean in between and package it all up. So the colder you can keep it, the better, even though it is a little bit annoying to get it all prepped for the grinding in this icy state. We have a friend from church who has bison, and he had to escape. And if you know bison, you can't, like cattle, really herd them and get them back where you want them. They're just going to be loose and cause havoc. So he called Mark and his brother to help track these down and shoot them. And we were very blessed to obtain some of that meat, which we're so thankful for. For us, it has been so worth it to invest in an electric meat grinder. Mark grew up using just a manual one, and obviously the electric makes it so much faster. And for me, I'm a mom at home doing this myself with 2 kids. I need that convenience for sure. We also got an entire heart from one of these bison. And I know all the benefits of eating organ meat. I want it more in my diet, but I don't really enjoy the texture and the taste of some of these meats. Heart is not bad, but my preferred way of incorporating it into what we eat is just to grind it up with the rest of our ground meat, because we're eating ground meat pretty regularly. I make a lot of meals with ground meat. In fact, I have a freezer meal collection I'll link down below that so many of those meals are with ground meat, and it's just because it's easy, it's quick to defrost. Anyway, so I just like to grind the organ meat right in with the ground meat, then I know that we're kind of consistently getting that little bit of more nutrient dense meat. Now that I've got the meat prepared to go through the meat grinder, I'm getting out the meat grinder, plugging it in, and getting out the various pieces because it does require some assembly. We just have the Cabela's brand meat grinder, and it's been fantastic. I'd say there's only one downside, and that is that a lot of the pieces are steel, and they're not stainless steel, so I don't know what that's called, but anyway, they will rust. So you have to clean them and dry them pretty much right after you're done, and you could view that as a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing because then it just forces you to clean up right away, which is great. When you're processing meat yourself, it really does help to have the right tools and equipment. Like, we went for a few years without having these giant bowls, but they have made a huge difference, and I just found them at a thrift store. Our meat grinder came with 2 disc sizes for creating different sizes of ground meat. I'm using the smaller one, and if I find the size, I'll put it on the screen here for you. Our oldest daughter likes to help with feeding the meat into the machine, so it took me a little bit here to kind of figure out the setup that would make sense, because you need kind of a flow, right? It's got to make sense where you can grab your meat, put it in, but also have access to the bowl because you need to turn it because the meat will otherwise overflow and flow out of the bowl. Okay, yep, start loading it in. That was part, so we want to do some part, some other things. Just to wait.
I need to.
Isn't the color of this meat so beautiful? Every time I walk by the ground meat in the store, I am just amazed at how different it is. You can just so clearly tell the difference in quality between store-bought meat and high quality meat from an animal that lived as it should have.
I need that.
Do you grind your own meat? I'd love to hear if you have some different ways, different tips that you could share. I'm open to improving how we do things always. So let me know in the comments.
Someone just. Oh, I think we need to turn it quick.
Once you get going, you get into a flow, and it does actually go pretty fast. I find the things that take the longest are the prepping the meat before and wrapping it all up once it's ground. But the grinding is the most fun and satisfying part. I love watching just these scrap bits of meat turn into this beautiful ground meat that I'm excited to cook with. Something like grinding 25 pounds of meat on my own with 2 kids in a day used to really freak me out, and I would just wait till my husband could help me with it. But there's not a lot of times where I have a whole day with my husband to do something like this, and of course we can make the time, but when I came to the realization that I could actually do it myself and it wouldn't actually be that hard, I was just overcomplicating it in my mind, then I realized, oh, I can do this anytime because I'm home all day, every day. I am a full-time homemaker, so I can get this done. And once I did that, we had way more ground meat and way less freezer burnt meat for grind sitting in the freezer. There is so much confidence and fulfillment that comes when you put your hand to something, when you learn a new skill, when you are able to do something on your own that a lot of people have never before done. And Yeah, it's not as easy as going to buy ground meat from the store or to buy super high quality grass-fed organic meat from a local farm, but it's cheaper. We already have the meat from the animal that we butchered, and it gives us a sense of pride because we grind our own meat. Now that the meat's all ground, I'm taking apart the grinder, and I'm going to first just soak all these pieces inside of my giant bowl. And right after I wrap up the meat and get it in the freezer, I will wash these and dry these and put it all away. The next stage is wrapping all of this up. Now, I used to do 1 pound packages, and now I just do 2 pound packages because I am a fan of making large batches of a meal and then having leftovers for lunch, and also more leftovers that I can freeze for a meal on a rainy day. Not a literal rainy day, but a day that I don't feel like cooking or I feel ill or something. A lot of the meals that I do this with, again, are in that freezer meal collection linked below. So preparation before you start wrapping is really important. It's nice to just have a bunch of butcher paper cut and in a pile ready to go. And then same goes for the masking tape that we use. It is really annoying to fold up your whole nice package of meat and then you have to somehow keep it folded up but get a piece of tape off. So over the years we've learned to just rip a bunch of pieces of tape, have them ready for use, and it'll make the wrapping so much smoother and easier. Now I do weigh my meat. I could just kind of guess by how much volume I'm seeing, but I like to do it this way. So I choose a container that's roughly the size I want my package to be. So I've got this glass Tupperware kind of container, and I make sure I zero out my scale so that it's not weighing the glass. And when I was doing this time, my battery in my scale died, so quick stop to just run upstairs into the loft where we keep all of the batteries, grab a new battery, and we can keep on with the process. And you can see the barricades we've had set up for the baby who was just starting to show interest in climbing the stairs. And since then we've got a baby get up, so that's not an issue anymore. Okay, now we can get back to work. So put my glass dish on there, zero it out, and then I start piling in my meat. And I'm going to roughly 2 pounds. I'm not super exact about it. You know, if I'm an ounce or two under or over, I'm not stressed. I'm just trying to get this done relatively efficiently. So once I've got the weight that I want, I do kind of a light press down because I want this meat to mostly stick together once it's out of the container, so it's easier to wrap. So I lightly press it down, pop it out onto the saran wrap that I have already extended for myself. Then I wrap it up in the saran wrap, and then again with the butcher paper. I always have a Sharpie when I'm wrapping meat because you always want to label it with at least what it actually is inside the package. I usually do the weight because sometimes I'll do a couple of different weights, a couple of pound packages here, or if I'm doing the last package and I have like 1.5 pounds, right? Then I want to make sure that I'm putting that down. It is a great idea to write the year on your packages as well. If you're regularly butchering your own meat, then you want to be using up the oldest stuff first. I didn't do that this time because I know how quickly we go through ground meat, and we didn't have any before getting this, so I didn't bother. Mark's brother hunts a lot too, so very often we're butchering with their family and putting things into their freezers, and so we always label as well with our different initials, so put an M and an E for things that are ours. Obviously, I'm not doing that. These things are just going right into our own freezers. If you're a mom and you feel kind of held back by your kids, like, oh, there's no way I could do that with my kids, I'd encourage you to think again. There's actually so much that you can do as a stay-at-home mom with your kids. Definitely involving them and having the patience to teach them and have them help you, even though it's never perfect and never makes it easier. It does make it doable. Like, you can do it with them if you will involve them, and they're going to learn skills. They're going to learn things that other kids won't know, and they will gain confidence from that and also have fun just doing useful things with you. It doesn't have to be playing all the time with our kids. They need to learn how to work, how to contribute to the family. And so involving your kids in day-to-day tasks and projects like this can be very, very beneficial for everyone. Of course, depending on the kid, their age, their personality, they might not want to be involved the whole time. And that is true for my 4.5-year-old. So she helped me as much as she wanted to. And then we just kind of hung out. Like, she did her own thing in her little corner of the table while I continued on, and we still had a good time together. Another thing you can do is try to think of out-of-the-box ways that you can involve them. So I had my daughter just decorate my wrapped packages of meat with her markers, and it's fun for her and it's fun for me every time I pull a decorated package out of the freezer. You know, it makes me smile to see her little doodles on there. So the work is done, and now it's just time to put all these packages of meat down in the freezer. I'll link our off-grid home tour here, but if you don't know yet, our downstairs is not connected to our upstairs. So we have to enter it from the outside. There's not a staircase from the inside. So I'm taking these around the house to the side where the door is downstairs, and that's where we keep our deep freezers. We have 4 deep freezers. Currently, we only have 3 in use, and so that's where this meat is going. We moved here in the spring, and my focus has been on the living space upstairs and not really organizing this downstairs portion yet. So everything's kind of where it was when we moved in, and that will need to be organized, and we'll get to it. But for now, it is doing its job to store a lot of our food. Thanks so much for watching. I make a new video every week about how we are trying to intentionally live our lives off the grid. So I hope you'll subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.